get started right on time. Thank you to everyone for joining us today. My name is Laura Bischloss. I am a policy researcher at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory in the Accelerated Deployment and Decision Support Center. I'm joined by Liz Weber, who is a program lead in NREL's Energy Security and Resilience Center and NREL's state, local, and tribal program. We're also joined by David and Faith, who can introduce themselves as they start speaking, like about midway through, if that's okay. So let's get going. There we go. So just quickly, our agenda for the day. I will talk about the project that Liz and I have been working on called Addressing Regulatory Challenges to Tribal Solar Deployment. Then we'll talk about some opportunities and resources for tribal solar development. And finally, David and Faith will get into a national transmission planning study. So let's start by talking about tribes and renewable energy in general. Tribal lands represent about 2% of the country's total land mass and about 6.5% of the total utility renewable energy technical potential. So this image shows the PV generation technical potential by reservation. You can see that some reservations do have really high technical potential. Solar accounts for half of the renewable energy technical potential on tribal lands. Technical potential just means how much is actually possible. But this solar resource is largely untapped. Tribes are actively seeking to engage in solar development. A survey that we did a review of 35 tribal strategic energy plans revealed that 32 of 35 tribes are exploring solar, but many of these tribes face regulatory hurdles to achieving their solar goals. So that's where this project comes in. The National Renewable Energy Laboratory, NREL, and the Midwest Tribal Energy Resource Association, MTERA, have been working together for the past, year and a half, 2 years, to articulate and address the regulatory challenges that tribes face when developing solar. So our project has 3 goals. The first is to increase stakeholder capacity regarding regulatory solutions in solar development on tribal land. We are hoping to help build working relationships among stakeholders, so utilities, regulators, and tribes. And then we also are hoping to ready stakeholders to address challenges using existing solutions or by working with other stakeholder groups. So we'll do this by developing frameworks, providing trainings, creating a document repository, etc. And the project has relied really heavily on stakeholder engagement. We've convened stakeholders in 3 categories: tribal, regulatory, and utility. We've spent the last year talking to hundreds of stakeholders to learn about the regulatory barriers to tribal solar deployment. That's where I don't know if you can see my mouse on the screen, but you can see we convene stakeholders. We've been analyzing the results and developing solutions. So we're here right now reconvening stakeholders. And we collated all the information that we gathered over the last year or so into one giant document. And that is why we are here today, to let you know about materials that are coming out for public comment today or tomorrow, depending on how quickly we can get it onto the website. We are publishing what we're calling a guidebook. It's available for public review and comment. We really, really want comments. And the guidebook includes 3 different books within it. So the first book is a book of barriers to solar deployment for tribes, regulatory barriers that we heard about during stakeholder engagement, as well as potential short and long-term solutions to overcoming those barriers. The second book are what we're calling issue briefs. It covers 6 topics that people interested in pursuing solar deployment with tribes should know about. So that's like tribal sovereignty, different land use concerns, etc. And then finally, the third book are case studies, 10 case studies of successful tribal solar deployment, highlighting creative ways that tribes have overcome regulatory barriers to deploying solar. So we really hope that you take the time to read the guidebook and provide feedback you may have. It will be available on MTERA's website. MTERA will send out a notice, and you can contact myself or MTERA if you have any questions or comments. So that is my spiel on the project we've been working on and will still continue working on. I should note that any comments or thoughts you have about this draft that we've released will play a role in a revision of the guidebook. We want it to be as actionable and as useful as possible. So this is not what we're putting out is not final. We're really looking forward to hearing from everyone. Now, let's talk about some opportunities and resources for tribal solar development. Liz and I will talk about some opportunities coming out of NREL and the National Labs and the Department of Energy that maybe your tribes can use to explore solar. So first is the Energy Transitions Initiative Partnership Project, and this is especially timely because applications are due on April 15th. ETIP provides technical assistance from 4 national laboratories, NREL, the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, and Sandia National Laboratory, provides technical assistance to remote island and islanded communities. You can kind of define those as you wish. You can also look at the website and see how islanded, and remote are defined. And it's really focused on renewable energy and resilience. Again, applications are due April 15th. If you have any questions about ETIP, you can reach out to myself. My email is at the last slide. And we would love to have some tribes apply to receive this really awesome year-long, 18-month-long technical assistance program. Liz, over to you.
Great. Hello, everyone. Again, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today with all of you. And thank you again to MTERA for hosting an incredible event and bringing us all together, and for the continued great work that you're all doing. For this piece in this section, I'd like to discuss 2 additional opportunities and resources available to tribes. The first is NREL's State, Local, and Tribal Technical Support Services Agreement. This agreement can be used in a variety of ways and for a variety of needs. From Ask an Expert, so this gives you availability to interact and collaborate with an NREL expert on technologies, policy, economic issues, regulatory concerns, help you develop proposals and reviews and development, including for potential applications that will be due for bill, technical and regulatory overviews. So the agreement can be executed incredibly quickly, and also for a range of costs, starting at only $2,000 for a lot of access to lab experts. The agreement was also established for its ease of use with tribes. We don't need to get into the weeds of it, but a part of this agreement has taken out the traditional indemnity clauses that generally create barriers or concerns for tribes in working with either DOE or a national lab. So for more information about this, please contact MTERA. NREL works in collaboration with MTERA. So if you reach out to MTERA, they will be able to help you coordinate any of this TA that you may be interested in. Next, I would like to highlight and mention again the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law bill, which Director Wahala Johns mentioned in her keynote. Bill is an incredible opportunity for tribes. On this slide, we have provided several resources for you that will be made available. We'll make sure that MTERA can send all these links and fact sheets out. And also a quick list of some other programs relevant to tribes where funding will be available. The fact sheets that DOE has put together provide a good start for the understanding of Bill, and I encourage you all to participate in the webinars and workshop DOE is offering. They recently offered one, I believe 2 days ago, that Secretary Granholm really participated in to start presenting information to tribal leaders. So please, please take advantage of these webinars. DOE is still working on the allocation and timeline. So along with the fact sheets, they have also created a web page that DOE has promised to keep up to date with new information, timelines, metrics, etc. So again, check the website regularly. If you need help navigating these opportunities, again, please reach out to MTERA. NREL works very collaboratively with MTERA, and we can help you navigate all these opportunities and timelines. Again, we heard, or if you saw the keynote this morning with Waheela, I really encourage you to utilize her office. They are truly doing amazing work. NREL works directly with her office to administer TA funds to tribes. So again, please reach out to MTERA so in partnership we can help you apply and access current availability of TA funds to you. And then also help you navigate and apply for the upcoming bill funds. It's going to be an incredible opportunity, and this opportunity for tribes, I think we all need to work together to make sure that we're accessing these funds for you. So please reach out to MTERA, to NREL, myself, but primarily MTERA because we work collaboratively with them. So now's the time that we need to start preemptively engaging and to navigate all these funds that are going to be available, because once they start with these timelines and application periods, it's going to move very quickly so they can allocate these funds in September and October of this year. So thank you.
Thanks, Liz. All right, David, on to you.
Great, thank you, Laura. And my name is Dave Hurlbut, and I'm speaking to you from Golden, Colorado, lands trod by countless generations of Ute, Arapaho, and Cheyenne people. And it's my sincere hope that the work we do today honors their historical stewardship of this area. I want to talk to you a little bit about something you'll be getting, your tribes will be getting a lot more information on in a few weeks. And this is a transmission planning study that is being done by DOE's Office of Electricity and its newly created Office of Infrastructure to look at national transmission planning strategies, ways to sort of accelerate decarbonization of the grid nationally. And this effort will have some will have particular interest to a number of tribes, and this is what we'll be communicating with you later on. But I want to give you kind of a sneak peek of what this is about right now to give you an idea of what you may be looking for. Let's go to the next slide, please. So I want to just briefly talk about the objectives and the outcomes and the general approach that we're taking in this study. And then at the end, I'll talk a little bit more about the types of engagement that we're using for this project, and talk a bit more about what we are looking to get from tribes in the way of particular input to the assumptions and how we're conducting the study. Next slide, please. The project is being conducted by NREL in partnership with the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. And we've been working closely, the two labs, with DOE over the past 2 months, kind of preparing the groundwork to roll out the study. Some of the work has already begun, and we're now moving into an important part of our public engagement. Next slide, please. So the objectives include basically interregional and national strategies, transmission strategies that would accelerate decarbonization while maintaining a reliable system. So it's definitely a large picture, large view objective here. Now, DOE doesn't build transmission itself, but what we aim to do is to provide analysis and scenarios and new ways of looking at opportunities that will inform regional and interregional transmission planning processes, especially improving the stakeholder engagement that goes into these processes. And then finally, we want to identify viable and efficient transmission options that will bring broad-scale benefits to electricity customers nationwide. Next slide, please. Now, you heard a little bit about all the projects that are funded by the bilateral infrastructure law. This study is going to be one of the tools that DOE will use in prioritizing funding for a lot of those programs involving transmission support and transmission development. So that's one of the major outcomes that we're looking for from this study. We also aim to fill existing gaps in interregional transmission planning. Planning is largely done regionally, but there's not much done between regions. So that's a gap that we're trying to fill here. That's where we see a lot of opportunities. The study is also going to provide a framework for stakeholders to discuss outcomes and talk about barriers to benefits and how those barriers might be addressed. Next slide, please. So there are three main components to the study: a baseline analysis, a scenario analysis, and then a public engagement piece. I'll just talk very briefly about the first two because I want to spend the most time talking about public engagement. That's really what is most relevant to tribes, I think. So let's go to the next slide, please. And jump to the next one. The baseline analysis is basically looking at, okay, let's take what we have in the books and see how far we can go with that. So without adding anything new, what renewables can be connected to these proposed lines and where will they go? What are the opportunities? And particularly, how close will these currently planned transmission projects get us to a goal of decarbonization of the grid by 2035? Next slide, please. And then jump to the next one. So that baseline analysis will then form the foundation for scenario analysis. This is where we'll look at different scenarios, different storylines, if you will, to explore pathways to getting to decarbonization and which ones are the most cost effective, which ones do the best job of maintaining reliability, which scenarios do the best job of equitably distributing benefits. And we'll have a number of tools, common tools that we'll be using in the development and analysis of these scenarios, including an economic analysis that will help understand the regional distribution of the national benefits that we're looking at. Next slide, please. Now, the study is going to look at linking several long-term and short-term modeling approaches to test these scenarios. We want to inform existing processes. So we want to provide some value added for what these regional processes are not really addressing at this point. What we're not going to do is to replace those planning processes. Those are going to go on as they always have been, but we just want to find some way to fill in some of the gaps, mostly between regions, to unlock opportunities for cost-effective decarbonization. And I'll let you all review these later on, but this is sort of a framework of really the boundaries of what we're trying to do, what we want to do. What we're not, the things that we're not doing have shaped the stakeholder engagement or the public outreach piece. If we can go to the next slide. Because we really want this to start conversations, conversations that hopefully tribes will be able to engage in a more productive way with their interests and their concerns. Let's go to the next slide, please. So the public engagement part of this project will have four aspects. One is public workshops. This is where DOE will present updates of the study and where we are, key milestones to the public, and share interim results. And there will be opportunities for public feedback via the project website, which I'll show you the link for in a minute. We're also reaching out to existing groups. There are groups that have been engaged in transmission planning for a long time. So we're engaging with them to make sure that we are using the same sets of data, the same input assumptions, so that our results are consistent with those planning efforts, because ultimately we want them to sort of take the ball from us and then move it farther along. We're going to have a technical review committee, which will provide technical input and suggest course corrections to the scenarios that we'll be looking at, and we'll be providing a review of interim results. So this is where a lot of the engagement will come. We also will have a special outreach to tribes, because there are interests that are specific to tribes, and because tribes are sovereign entities, we didn't want to treat them as any other stakeholder. We wanted to make sure we address those concerns in a way that honors the sovereignty of the tribes. So let's go to the next slide, please. So the plan is basically we will begin with kind of a broad outreach to all tribes. With this would be an informational consultation, but because we're trying to distribute the information to all tribes, it's really more for the purpose of explaining what the study aims to do, and to describe the avenues for later discussions between tribal staff and lab staff who are doing the study. So this will be a broad outreach. Tribes can make their own determinations as to whether or not this is something that they want to engage in more closely. Those tribes that do will have an opportunity to work with staff, with the labs, in developing their own statements of interest. These statements are going to be important to the project, because that is what we will use to determine how to change the scenarios that we'll be using, or the assumptions that we'll be using, or the data. And then the labs will also advise interested tribes that want to participate more in, say, the technical review committee or the various subcommittees, how they might do that. And I've listed to the right here some of the potential interests that tribes might have. So this is something that you can expect to see coming to your tribal governments fairly soon. This the broad informational outreach that will summarize the project pretty much as I've described here, but also will include avenues for further engagement, for more tribal specific determination of what your interests are. Next slide, please. This is the website, and you'll have a copy of this presentation and the others afterwards. So the website goes over the overview of the study, and it'll include project news, milestone results. You can also have access to webinar presentations. You can get on the mailing list for advisories on what's happening with the study. And this is also where we'll include schedules of the TRC meetings. The Technical Review Committee meetings will be accessible to the public. You'll be able to view the meetings and then post comments. And then there's also a public comment form where you can provide direct input to the project. Next slide, please. And if you have any immediate questions, if anyone here has immediate questions, please contact me directly, or you can reach out to Laura or Liz, the lab folks that you have been working with, and Faith and I will get back to you as soon as we can. That I'll turn it over.
David, there is a question in the chat right now, if you would like to answer it.
Sure.
Is DOE focused on large-scale transmission lines across the nation, or is there opportunity to construct small-scale local transmission grid?
This particular study is looking at large-scale bulk transmission development. The idea is, well, it's similar to what Texas did about 15 years ago. Its transmission, it had a special transmission planning program that identified high concentrations of high quality wind so that you could build a large scale transmission line, put a substation in the middle of it, and you could basically fill that line with high productivity wind resources with minimal transmission investment. So it's kind of right sizing. What we don't want to do is to build transmission everywhere. We want to do that as efficiently as possible. And that means linking high concentrations of high productivity renewables with load centers. So we're talking about bulk transmission. Now, there are other programs under the bilateral infrastructure law that provide, more localized development of not only transmission but the distribution system, generation, and that's something that that Liz and Laura have talked about before, and you can get more assistance on that. But this particular project is really focused on bulk transmission expansion to decarbonize the grid in the most cost-effective way.
Thanks, David. Does anyone else have any questions? There's nothing else in the Q&A. Well, thank you, David. Thanks, Liz. We can use this time now. Carrie is going to put a poll out for all of our participants. So, Carrie, if you want to do that. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I hope you keep an eye out on the MTERA website for the report. And I hope you all have a really great day.